Now, robust discussions happening at Ratanapa today. The politicians are coming in, and I saw a headline earlier to say that Christopher Luxon has awakened the taniwha. Not sure exactly what that means. But looking at Te Tiriti from a Christian point of view, joining us on the program is Reverend Dr. Stuart Lange. He is the National Director of the New Zealand Christian Network and also, appropriately, a New Zealand church history historian. Stuart, kia ora, nice to see you again.
Kia ora tātou.
Now, when it comes to, I suppose, an understanding of Te Tiriti, there's a lot of people talking about it at the moment, and honestly, maybe this is a good thing, Stuart, that, yes, some people describe this as the founding document of our nation. There may be some different interpretations about what it means and what it doesn't mean, both back in the day and what it means for us today. But I honestly believe that not many New Zealanders really understand what it says. In fact, very few people could, if you said, so what does the second clause say, for example, very few people in New Zealand could answer that question. Maybe it's a good thing we're talking about it.
Well, absolutely. And as Christians, we've got an interest in the welfare of our society.
Yep.
And also we've got a stake in the Treaty of Waitangi because it was, in effect, brokered by the missionaries.
Now, that can be good news or bad news depending on your perspective. Yes, certainly in terms of our history, the missionaries were involved in advocating for it, translating it and promoting it. But given outcome for Māori, sometimes missionaries also get the blame for some of the bad things that happened.
Well, they do, but unfairly, because the Christian intent that influenced the signing of the treaty was entirely good and just and for Māori well-being. I mean, the backdrop is that there were a lot of British scallywags, shall we say, who were oppressing Māori, ship captains, hijacking people, firing big guns, cannons on Māori kainga and so on, trying to intimidate them, and all that sort of thing. And there was the fear about the loss of land and so on.
Yeah.
So Māori 1835 had declared, with missionary help, their declaration of independence, saying we're a sovereign nation and we need to be respected. But then there was the threat of large-scale colonization, and missionaries didn't want colonization, and so it was almost the British taking over the New Zealand was reluctant, but it was the humanitarian lobby, evangelical humanitarian lobby in Britain, that encouraged the Colonial Office, and there were strong Christians in that as well, to take it over by agreement with Māori. So there was not conquest; it was an agreement, if you like, a covenant. A lot of Māori have seen it that way.
Yeah.
And so there are the strong spiritual and ethical implications in the treaty, even though it was essentially a civil or constitutional or political document, if you like.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to what the treaty actually said, now, of course, nearly 200 years later, even what the term the crown means is very different than what it meant back in the day. Some of the structures in our society have changed, but in terms of what it meant then and the understanding of both Māori and European representatives, what were they signing up to, Stuart?
Well, the first clause was probably the key one, in that the Māori agreed to British governorship or government or sovereignty over New Zealand. Now, whether it was sovereignty or governorship, but it was certainly government, that the British Crown, and of course New Zealand's now an independent country, so the Crown in effect is the New Zealand government, whatever stripe they are, it is the government. The state, the New Zealand state, has that authority, and Māori conceded that. The Māori chiefs conceded that.
I mean, that's a controversial point in itself, and there are some things that are perhaps lost in translation. We don't have time to get into the full what this word meant details, but moving on if we can. The second clause, what was the essence of that one, Stuart?
Well, the essence, there was more than one, but it was guaranteeing some Maori rights.
Hmm.
Certainly Maori rights to the chief's right to their full chieftainship,
Yep.
the tino rangatiratanga, which meant their mana, their chiefly authority, to lands, to fisheries, to treasures, and in all of that, it and a lot of scholarship backs this up. It implied, I think, a degree of self-determination.
Yeah.
So essentially, the governance of New Zealand by the British was not to facilitate colonization. That was not the purpose. It was the effect.
Yeah.
But the purpose was to regulate British visitors and traders and ship captains, and also to negate the worst effects of colonization on New Zealand, to regulate it. And so that was essentially the key thing was the protection of their land rights.
Yeah.
And so land could only be sold to the Crown, who would buy it at a just price and only by Maori consent.
Yeah.
Now, all of that was breached. So, the bad rap on missionaries is by people mistakenly conflating or confusing colonization and the treaty.
Yeah.
Because
there's a huge gap between intent and outcome, as it were.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so the treaty was to have it was recognizing that colonization was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
On the missionaries' part, that was very regrettable.
Yeah.
But they felt, okay, the British Crown needs to control its own people and to establish that just law that will protect Maori land and rights.
Now,
but when that didn't happen, it's not the missionaries to blame. They protested against the injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And the settler government, which was granted far too early in the 1850s,
mm-hmm.
they were very dismissive of the missionaries as, they love the Maori too much, and they want the New Zealand as a preserve for missionaries and Maori.
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so on. And there was a lot of ugly rhetoric, much uglier than it is now, I might say.
Exactly. Although I can expect that it may get uglier as we move towards the Waitangi commemorations.
It's too ugly currently.
Exactly. Now, in some ways, that was then, this is now, and in particular, within the last 40 or 50 years, there's been some court decisions and some work, some really positive work with the Waitangi Tribunal to say, okay, how do we apply this? Some of what's happening politically, asking the question is, has it been applied the right way? It's one of those situations, I suppose, where people are saying, gosh, can we have a grown-up conversation about what the treaty means for us now without just retreating to our ideological corners and yelling and calling each other names and those sorts of things? Are you optimistic, Stuart?
Why, I do recognise that human nature is flawed and fallen.
Yep.
So there are always imperfections in public discourse, and politics distorts a lot of things.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, some of the claims that are made about what the treaty means from both sides, both extremes, are just not well informed.
Yeah.
There's one side which takes Christianity pretty much out of it, and it's all about the evils of colonization and white supremacy and the evils of white people and all that sort of stuff at the very extreme end. And then there's the other side that says, no, it doesn't mean that at all. And it's pure imposition and distortion. Yeah. For instance, claiming that Clause 2 is about guaranteeing land rights for every New Zealander is from outer space. It's got no relationship to what the treaty was about. It's just got zilch.
Do you think there's enough middle ground? I mean, the extremes.
There's no middle ground on that.
No, there isn't.
That's crazy stuff.
But
that's if we, to use a Maori word, it's mad.
If we top and tail it, though, is there enough good stuff in the middle? Do you think? Is there enough grace and goodwill?
If we stick with sensible, respectful interpretations of the treaty, I think there's enough middle ground. And so the thing, like with clause 1, was it governorship or sovereignty that was conceded? Well, those two can live together.
Yeah.
Number 2 clause, we haven't dealt with 3 yet, is about some sort of mix and match, and it's protection of Māori rights and a degree of self-determination, and that implies respect for Māori language and culture.
Yeah.
Not that they are taking it over, New Zealand over. New Zealand's already been taken over, in effect, by just sheer weight of numbers of Pākehā settlers. And so it is essentially an English language oriented and Western culture type of society.
I know we haven't got to clause 3 of the treaty, but we have run out of time for today.
Clause 3, equal rights and privileges.
Exactly. Now, I'm sure we can have some more conversations about this as we head towards Waitangi and beyond. But hey, appreciate your perspective from the New Zealand Christian Network. Kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Kia ora, thank you.